Are you mental?
Come and get it.
Hey there, Enthusiacs. Welcome back to Hero Talk. I'm your host, Judge Greg. Joining me, I have Nick. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing okay.
All right. Today's film is Ultraviolet. And for those of you who didn't see this one, it was a 2006 dystopian movie, the similar vein to Equilibrium, starring Milla Jovovich. Now, as you know, Hero Talk is a spoiler podcast, and while we'll try to keep it to the movie at hand, anything that has been released is on the table and fair game. So, Nick, my initial thoughts, and I said it was in the same vein as Equilibrium because it's the same writer and same director, but this movie, to me, felt like Equilibrium and Aeon Flux got together and had a baby, and Ultraviolet popped out. I don't know. What did you think?
I'm not going to forgive you for this. I don't know how, and I don't know when, but I will get you back for this. We did Equilibrium, and that was fun. So you said, oh, let's watch the other movie by this guy. That's what you said. It might be fun. No, this wasn't fun. You said for those who haven't seen it, I actually did a little bit of a poll. And while my means aren't exactly great, I'm hoping to get this published at some point soon, because the results lead me to believe that no one saw this movie. Now, I know there's actually box office results for this, and my theory is that is actually the baseline revenue that a widescreen worldwide release can get, because that would just be cast, crew, families of the cast and crew, critics, and people who just want to be critics watching this movie. I don't think anyone saw this movie. I think you and I are the first two people who actually saw this movie.
So not a fan?
No.
All right. Hate to burst your bubble, but I've actually have seen this movie twice before I had to watch it for Hero Talk. And I should probably point out that even after this third viewing that I just finished, I still have no idea what the actual story of this movie is.
Yeah, there really isn't one.
Yeah, now there's an extended cut which was only available on DVD and not Blu-ray for whatever reason. Where they added, like, I think the running time of this movie is actually like 97 minutes or 87 minutes, and there's an unrated cut that adds like a 7 minutes, and it's basically just 7 minutes of explaining what's going on that they decided to cut for whatever reason. So I
was it
thought
all added to that one scene where they got to William Fichtner?
Probably not. Although they explain why William Fichtner's so smart when he doesn't have like this other suit. I mean, it's the movie. It explains so much in what was cut. So at some point you're like, why are they talking about vampires? How are they vampires? You know, because you're almost 2/3 of the way through the movie before they actually have finished telling you what all these additional abilities everyone has are. And so like you're honestly you're about 50 to 60 minutes into the movie before you realize, oh, they're supposed to be like vampires.
Yeah, they didn't like using the word, and they didn't exactly show fangs or any vampiric ability or anything like that, aside from informed ability that they're smarter, or not necessarily smarter, but faster and stronger.
Yeah, so what I had to do, Nick, is I had to go and I had to like look up the extra lore. And I hate having to do that because one would think I got all the lore I needed because I watched, the movie. So I looked up the extra lore, and like in the cut scenes they actually show things like explaining like the teeth do, like the canines do get bigger like a vampire, and they have the extended strength, and they have the other stuff, but they're not immortal. They can be killed. They're still vulnerable to bullets and guns, and they're still vulnerable to knives. And that the actual disease, because this is what I was kind of curious about the whole time, and they did not do a good job of explaining this, is, so what's the downside? And
not only that,
yeah.
But consider the fact that apparently the government's had this long-standing campaign to rid the world of hemophages, as they call them.
Yes.
And it sounds like there's not many left, like on the order of dozens.
Right.
So Milla Jovovich's character is going around killing more humans than there are hemophages left. Like, the fight's over. It was lost a long time ago. Now it's just about doing damage.
Yeah, basically.
So, really, the main protagonist is entirely not sympathetic. There's nothing, unless the forced termination of pregnancy thing is that's about the only thing presented to make them identifiable or sympathetic.
Right. Now, there's supposed to be this other subplot that got cut where she actually doesn't have that much long to live.
Yeah, there was the bit where it was said that she was dying. So is hemophagia supposed to be terminal anyway?
Yeah, so what goes on is, like, once you get it, yeah, you get these advanced abilities, but, like, it basically you have a ticking clock. And they don't really say exactly how long, but, like, the general rule is nobody's ever lived longer than 12 years. And she was
so this seems like a problem that'll fix itself anyway.
Yeah, it really did. It's just I think it was just the idea that but it can spread to all these different peoples, and you have this constantly new set of people who have a new 12-year clock. So really, once you put them in their concentration camps, because if there's one thing that I know about Kurt Wimmer, he loves zombie symbolism. He does. I mean, the man. It's when I saw the mark patch, the armband that the infected had to wear.
Yeah.
Like, okay, we're taking the Nazi metaphors back.
Yeah. Not only that, they hammered it home with the fading out Hasidic Jewish family.
Oh yeah. Like, I thought that was maybe a little
over
overt.
The top and freaking anachronistic.
Yeah, and like it just kind of felt like he didn't think we got it yet. Yeah, if there's one thing I've learned from watching Kurt Wimmer movies, and I don't hate all Kurt Wimmer movies, although that's what it's going to kind of start to sound like here, he thinks he's smarter than his own movie. And he's not.
Yeah, that's an accusation that can be equally leveled against Equilibrium, which we both enjoyed. So
right, that doesn't ruin the movie, obviously, but
movies in general.
It's definitely when you have a movie like this where you cut out all the story elements and you're just shaking your head, going like, I don't understand it, and then you go read up on the lore, and you're like, no, now I still don't understand it. Something went wrong.
Yeah.
So anyway, I guess we need to talk about the cast, because this is a pretty decent cast, and some of my personal favorites are in here. So playing a Violet Song, or her full name was like Violet Song Jat Sharif,
something like that,
which they say like a dozen times in this movie, which didn't make it any easier on me to memorize. So she's played by Mila Jovovich. That's Mila Jovovich. I know that's the right pronunciation, everybody, because she does have commentary on the Blu-ray. And I did watch the first, 4 or 5 minutes of it. I wasn't going to watch this movie another time. Like, I was done.
I'm surprised you got that far.
Well, let's be honest. My last Hero Talk was Labyrinth, so I've developed a little bit of a tolerance for bad movies now, so... But yeah, I mean, I kind of like to hear her take. Like, I've listened to her commentaries on some other movies, and she actually does a decent job as far as, kind of talking through scenes and making it fun. I just wanted to hear her talk through, like, that whole interrogation thing, because that was a little weird, and I just wanted to see if she could add any insight to it. And, no, not really. She didn't. So, other than she really hates needles, so she can't actually watch the scene where they stick all those needles up in her eyes and stuff.
I hate anything touching my eye, so I wouldn't blame her for that.
Yeah, it's a little creeptastic. But so Mila Jovovich, who I love, by the way, Mila Jovovich has been in 100 movies, and any one of them could be a Hero Talk. And I actually quite like her, especially in some movies that people don't so much like her in. This was not her best work. I haven't seen a ton of her movies, but I would say that just the frame, this is a really action-heavy movie, yes.
And the framing of things, you can't talk about this without making the comparisons to Equilibrium, and she did not move with the same purpose and definition that Christian Bale could.
No.
So
and
there's no
quite
way
frankly,
for her
who
to come
could,
out
though?
a winner
If we're going to
in
be
that.
honest, who could?
True, but it yeah. There was just, with Christian Bale, there was defined motions.
Yes.
With Mila Jovovich, it was like she waved her hand and there was a gun in it, and then they added bullet sparks, and then everybody else fell down.
Yeah.
Whereas Christian Bale actually was aiming at people, for the very quick comparison.
Right, and
so
especially having watched Equilibrium and Ultraviolet as close to each other as we have now, there was definitely you get a chance to see them both do gun kata, because they both do gun kata, and you get to see who does it better. And I just Christian Bale's is more believable because Violet only tends to do gun kata when that particular action scene calls for gun kata.
Yeah. And it's also because there's just the I'm sorry, I thought about the gravity leveler for a second and my brain went blank.
Yeah. They do understand that's not how that works, right?
I think the best way to explain the gravity leveler is if you've ever played Extreme G. And for those who haven't, it's like a bike racing game where wherever's down to your bike is down pretty much. So you've got really crazy courses going up and around loops and walls and whatever. That's pretty much how it worked, because she actually went up the side of a building with the gravity leveler on, so the side of the building was down, jumped off the top, turned, and now to the orientation of her bike, the top of the building was down, she falls on the top of the building.
Yeah, no, that's basically how it worked. And then that kind of silly scene where she jumps through the helicopter.
Yeah.
I mean, you do understand you have a ranged weapon with you, right? You don't need to jump through the helicopter.
And on top of the...
Yeah, then through the windows and the other... it's this...
There was a bullet hole through the windshield of the bike. There's no way she survived that.
Well, she does have that super vampire healing that we get told about but never get to see.
Yeah.
I love her. I've seen her in so many movies, but I get it. She's not Christian Bale, and who could be? But however, she seemed like she really
do action, but she can't do this kind of action.
This is not her forte. Like Fifth Element, she was good at. I actually really liked her in the Resident Evil series, and I know she gets a lot of flack for that. And I don't know what to say. I really liked her in those series, and she's been in a ton of other things. And I generally like her, but this movie just felt like, other than the fact that I just happened to like her, there was nothing else that was really drawing me to this character of Violet.
There was no character.
Yeah, I mean, basically there wasn't, and her lines were delivered so woodenly. Now, and again, like, I had seen this movie twice. Now, I saw it twice in 2006. I think that's worth pointing out, so it'd been a while. And I'm seeing her deliver these lines with this little kid, because you can't have a Kurt Wimmer movie without some annoying little kid running around. And, I mean, they are horribly wooden. And anyway, I don't even know why there's a little kid other than Kurt Wimmer, and why not? We need to draw us. It's like all his ideas he couldn't quite get into equilibrium festered, and then because I can't just say he saved them, because no, with what this movie did, they festered, and
oddly
then they
enough,
got
I gotta say that when the kid started speaking, my immediate reaction was, "Thank God, a relatable character."
Yeah. All right, so a couple of other people in the cast. Now, we have Cameron Bright, who played the kid, 6, because he was the 6th clone of the next character. See, this is how I'm just moving right past him and not even talking about him anymore. He was the 6th clone of the next character. It was Nick, I think Chinland is how you say his name, as the Ferdinand Daxis, or the Archbishop to Father, or whatever character he was playing, with a ridiculously long title that didn't mean anything, just like Equilibrium.
Yeah. Hypocritical, corrupt government.
Yeah. Turns out he's the thing that he's outlawed.
Yeah.
Like, he's... Are you messing with me, cleric?
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. And now, I sort of remembered this movie before. The scene that sticks out in this movie with me more than any other scene is, it's actually...
you want me to take a guess what it is?
A Daxis scene. Yeah, go ahead.
Is the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil?
Yeah, it's that scene.
Yep.
I remember specifically him pouring an inordinately awkward shaped cup of coffee.
It looked more like a cup for one of those little bowls you would drink sake out of.
It did, and then he fills it up and he shoots the guys in a poetic manner. Why the guy with the earshot fell, I don't really know, but it's not my movie. And then he didn't spill a drop, and I'm supposed to believe that because he did that, he's now some super capable person. And so I even thinking to this scene, when I see him in the movie, and I'm actually trying to pick up on the plot this time, I remember thinking to myself, oh, well, he's totally one of these hemophages. Because I had completely forgotten. Like, there was... Sometimes your brain sees a movie, and it just purges.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with Ultraviolet. So, all I was really remembering was, oh, there was that scene with Daxis. Oh, and Mila Jovovich is in it.
Yeah, well, there's so little meat to this movie that there's not much to hang your memories off of.
Well, I mean, they literally cut the story out.
Chun-Li, there's so little going on there that we forgot how much just crap was going on.
Yeah, it's all filler. It's even to the point where the action becomes... what's the word I'm looking for? When the action becomes...
Inconsequential?
Yes. It just... you're not invested anymore. And that's what happened here. Now, again, this one was mercifully only 87 minutes long. So, coming off of Labyrinth, this did feel like a bit of a relief. However, we seriously need to watch a good movie before I do another hero talk, because I don't know if I can take this again. All right, so at least let's look at one of the other shining lights of this movie, and that's the character of Garth, played by William Fichtner. Now, yep. I have often declared that Michael Clarke Duncan is the patron saint of movies with bad scripts. And I think if I'm going to start giving out sainthood to actors, I think William Fichtner should be the patron saint of hero talk, because he has, in more than one time, been both the only positive thing that we can see. I mean, I liked him in this movie, and I think I only liked him because it was William Fichtner.
Yeah, you can. That's pretty much all you can say about it, is that you want to see William Fichtner doing more stuff, and he's in this movie, and he's doing his William Fichtner thing, and he's just kind of sympathetic and relatable, but nothing he does really means anything either. So
yeah, that's about sums up his character. Like, I wanted to see more of him, but I didn't, and there you go.
Yeah, just because it's William Fichtner, I want to see him do things.
Right, he's William Fichtner. If he's doing something, it's going to be
be watchable.
It's going to be watchable. It's going to be enjoyable. I wanted to watch him more, and the scenes where he's in and reacting off of Mila Jovovich made Violet seem more like a person. There
was something very warm and tender about him.
Yeah. And actually, I saw an interview with Fichtner and some of the behind the scenes stuff. And he basically, the way he described Garth, and this is the way he played Garth, and you kind of see it now when he says it, is Garth is the guy who wants to find the cure so bad because he just misses being human.
Which, oddly enough, is very close to the same thing that he was doing in Equilibrium.
Yeah. Well, it's he's good at what he does. And then in terms of the rest of the cast, nobody even worth mentioning.
No, not really.
No, there's Sebastian Andrew played some guy, and he didn't really factor in a whole lot other than just kind of putting the kid in peril for another scene. And I think he was from the Underworld movies, but I don't remember right off the top of my head who he played. So we're going to move on. And I just want to talk about some of the technology in this movie, because there were some parts of it that weren't bad. That's the nicest way I could word it. Like, I kind of liked the idea of, like, the little pocket dimensions, although it did kind of feel like the sci-fi equivalent to the D&D bag of holding.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was kind of neat to see her sitting there loading things up from her wrist.
Yeah.
But, like, holding all of the guns and all this other stuff, it just got...
The problem is you show the trick so many times, I start to be like, yeah, I get it. She can load from her wrist. You don't need to show me every time.
What's more, there's no set limit. So why is she not using larger weaponry? There's no rules established for how this thing works.
Yeah, like, I can see what you're saying. Like, at this point, why don't I just produce a nuclear missile?
You can watch it being used and understand the rules of how it's used.
Yeah.
But there's no visible limit to this little bag of holding space in her wrists.
Mm-hmm.
With the gravity leveler, it takes a second to turn on. It's not omnidirectional. It's always oriented to whatever your orientation is. So.
Yeah, I mean, at least that way you could have a person who has all these weapons, but they're not, walking around with all these weapons, and I'm supposed to think that's normal, and it makes sense. Although, when they check, in the beginning scene, when they do all these checks to make sure that she's clean and she's not going to be a threat or anything, if she has a bag of holding, isn't that something you want to maybe look into?
Well, they even were able to look into it at the end of the movie.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what made it kind of a little odd, but...
Well, there is no way to explain how she was able to get past all the security measures. They were looking at the teeth, they were looking at the eyes, they were looking at the blood. They stabbed her wrists for some reason.
Yeah, they came up with some kind of hand wave, like, well, sometimes people take these suppressants. Like,
yeah.
Oh, then maybe you should be testing for those.
There has to be a trace of it in the system.
Yeah, like, if maybe sometimes people have these suppressants, then what's with doing all the checks if you're able to get past them? And people are able to get past them. They weren't surprised. It's not like this was something new that nobody had developed before. The people at the security checkpoint knew about them.
Or were able to figure it out quickly enough that someone... You don't have a system that big and have it fail and have a theory about how it failed inside 5 seconds.
Right. It's just a kind of lazy writing. Especially because the whole thing goes down when another carrier shows up. She's like, I'm the right one, you have the wrong one. They're like, oh, the stupid suppressants again. Like, come on, guys. Come on.
And even then, Violet wasn't disguised to look like the other one. How did they not know who was going to be picking this thing up? And why was it being carried anywhere? Weren't they carrying it from the ministry or whatever it was to take it back to the...
It was from one location to another location, and it was just, the carrier was... Now, what I don't understand, and this was kind of weird, and other than for our sake as the audience, like, why is like, I'm going to explain to you, carrier, what this is, and I'm going to tell you the fake lie we're telling everybody. You know what you could do is just not tell anybody anything, and just move the kid. You don't maybe not even put it in a case and call it a weapon. Just move the kid.
Yeah.
Because nobody's going to look or care if you move a kid. You've apparently done this 5 times before and nobody noticed. So just move the kid.
Yeah. The other 5 must have failed or something. And
I
7
guess.
and 8 were still waiting or...
Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. I mean, I guess I should be thankful that the twist at least worked, but I don't... It's the premise of like, oh, so I have this clone of myself, and we put this human disease in it, and we're gonna atomize the kid and then disperse it into the environment so that people get sick. And you're kind of shaking your head like, I don't understand why you needed the clone for this. Seems like any old lab could have just drawn this sucker up for you.
Yeah. Plot device.
Yeah, it's almost like Daxus was sitting there and like, well, what could be more stereotypical villainy?
Well, not only that, but they had to have the mother surrogate thing, which, oddly enough, the movie actually called out its own crappy writing later.
It sure did.
That's the only reason to have a kid was because Violet had a forcefully terminated pregnancy, and here's a child.
Yeah. Now... I don't know. I didn't pick up on it being forcefully terminated as far as it was miscarried because of the experiments on her.
That was the...
But it's not like they ever tell you.
Terminology in the movie is like the forced termination of the pregnancy.
Maybe I missed that part. I don't know. There was...
It really doesn't matter because it doesn't impact anything.
Yeah. So, and this is... I didn't know this, but so in the movie, you know, when like her and her boyfriend or husband or whatever, like, get attacked by the dude and the guard shoots him and that's how she gets infected. So, like, the whatever they call themselves, the LLDD, the Latter Day something or other, I don't know. It's just the Tetragrammaton. When they take her, the husband thinks she's dead, and he goes on and takes another, and like has a whole other life. And so they recut it, and it just made it look like he was dead. Now, I've seen this scene a couple times now. What happened? They were just like, they were in like the supply closet hugging each other, and then a vampire just busts in and attacks them for no good reason. Like, I'm really a little curious as to how it actually went down, because it's such a quick flashback.
I can give you no insights.
Yeah, well, it's about the same in the movie. So let's go through this opening scene, because there's, I mean, and what I mean the actual opening scene, the Admiral Akbar scene, where these... Now, this isn't how physics works, and this kind of bothered me, and this set the tone right away for what I was about to see. Like, this kind of told me, put your expectations low, but if you drop 5 spheres out the back of a helicopter in series, they're not going to land right next to each other on the ground in parallel. That's not how that works. And now if you're telling me that they could navigate, it didn't look like they could. They were in spheres. Look, they were just being dropped. I don't know.
When I saw that, the best thing I could come up with was they were actually being dropped laterally. So to the side of whatever flying craft was dropping them.
Momentum doesn't favor your theory.
I didn't say it made sense. I said that's the best thing I could come up with.
Yeah. But the thing that really stood out to me about this scene is, so like these guys, these 5 ninjas break in and they come in the place, and then all of a sudden they're surrounded. And the first thing I thought is like, these guys went to the Christian Bale school of noticing your surroundings when you enter a room. You know, they come in and they're surrounded once again. It's like, huh, well, I guess this director also likes we're all alone. Oh, now we're surrounded, because he did it again. Well, and like, these 5 highly trained assassins probably should have noticed that there were people right behind the pillars they were walking past.
Oh, man. Yeah, the whole opening sequence there with the raid on the blood lab thing just did not it did not look good at all to me in any way. About 2 minutes into the movie, I thought, man, if Equilibrium is like Batman Begins, this is Batman and Robin. Just the color palette was too bright. It like when they blow out the vault door thing, it just looked so much like a set.
Yeah, I mean, it did. I mean, there was a liberal use of green screen in this movie.
Oh, yes.
And unfortunately, it was not good. It was very noticeable.
Not only was it not very good, it didn't age well either.
No, it was very, very obvious to see where the green screen was. And that was to the detriment of the movie, I think, because it took me out of the movie a couple of times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know? The worst bit for that was probably, again, when Violet was driving up the side of the building and there were attack helicopters shooting out the glass to her side.
Oh, yeah. That whole motorcycle
all these little
scene
shards
was...
of glass that just looked terrible.
Yeah, that wasn't very good at all. So, since we're speaking of all the colors of the movie, I don't understand what point it served, and maybe if there was any rhyme or reason to, when Violet kept changing her clothes and her hair color.
I kind of got the impression that was something automatic in whatever the fashion was at the time. It didn't serve any purpose on any level other than to be a neat visual effect in the movie.
Yeah, it was a little, I don't know, I guess maybe I didn't like that visual effect in the movie. Yeah. Now, I mean, that's nitpicky, given everything else that happened in this movie, the fact that her clothes are changing and her hair is changing, it's like, oh, listen, just accept it and move on. But the problem is that I'm watching the movie, and after she does it the first couple of times, I'm trying to see if it's like, is it automatic? Is she controlling it? Like, in some cases, it kind of looks like she's doing it to, like, you know, like, she'll put black hair on when she's trying to not stand out as much. And I thought it was funny when at one point, she was trying to blend in with the crowd, so she zipped up her coat to blend in. I'm like, you know, you're still showing, like, 1.5 feet of midriff, right? Like... You still stand out. You're the only person showing midriff in all of future Shanghai here, so
but I mean that's the same problem they have with the bag of holding space on her wrist. There's no defined rules, and that's part of what makes, you know, alternate presentations on reality interesting. Is there are supposed to be rules, and they're different from our rules, and it's an exploration of what you can do if rules were different like this. But when there are no rules, it's like a 6-year-old spinning a yarn.
Yeah, basically. I just, one more thing that's kind of bothered me, and I want to see if it bothered you too. It is very impractical to have a katana blade without a hilt.
It didn't have a hilt?
Didn't it?
I didn't notice it one way or the other. I did notice that it was square at the end for some reason.
Hang on, we're holding for... Okay, I'm going to restart that sentence again. I thought it was very impractical to have a katana blade that did not have a guard.
Huh, yeah. I didn't notice that, but yeah, that's not a good idea.
Yeah, it was... Because when you have a sword that's basically straight and can slide up and down, and you don't have a guard on it, I mean, you're begging to get your hand chopped off there. Apparently Star Wars did not exist in this universe. Yeah. Did Star Wars not exist in this universe, so they couldn't see what happens when you don't have a guard on a bladed weapon and try to fight somebody else with a bladed weapon? I mean, you would think how many, like, of these Jedis get their hands cut off. It seems to be a common issue that comes up all the time. Guys get their hands cut off. Like, oh, you know why? Because you don't have a guard. That's
well, then you put a guard on their sword, and then people start complaining that the guard doesn't make any sense.
Well, you lose your hand one time, the guard makes sense. I just thought it was impractical, and it
well,
really got
anyway,
me.
For a conventional blade, yes, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, but there was this really interesting thing she was doing with the blade when she was, like, doing these spins, and apparently, like, a lot of, like, the Shanghai guys, or the Hong Kong, the Hong Kong stuntmen, were surprised by it and like, oh, what sword form is that? And they're like, oh, that's rhythmic gymnasts do that with their batons.
Huh.
So they got like rhythmic gymnasts to kind of teach them some things, which it looks different. And when the scenes when she's using her sword, it's kind of nice to see people doing something that's not what I've seen in every other movie.
You mean like during the final fight when they're just flinning with katanas?
That was completely different. And why did they catch fire? Why?
They both had the accelerant from Draxus's flame pistol on them.
Oh man, I totally missed that.
Yeah, because in the final fight, she had her hand was bleeding, and she like threw some at him as he fired, and the blood put out the pilot light, but the goo got onto her sword.
So that's what that stuff was that she threw the blood. See, I didn't really. I guess maybe I just didn't pick up that was a flame gun. And I was going to ask you, like, why did she just throw her blood at the weapon? Was it just to get blood splattered on them, just to mess with them?
That might have been the primary reason, and the pilot light going out was just a happy coincidence.
Yeah, so I guess I didn't pick up that was a flame gun, but I was fairly well checked out by that point of the movie, I'll be perfectly honest with you.
I don't think anyone could blame you for that.
Yeah, but so as long as we're going through these action scenes, because there's nothing else, Nick. There's nothing else. If we don't go through the action scenes,
there is one other thing. There are action sequences, and the bit where the film seems to come to a screeching halt, but at least we get to see William Fichtner.
Yeah, no, that's true. It's an action sequence, and there's a little bit of William Fichtner in there. But I mean, the whole thing where the case that she has, and it's probably maybe explained to somebody who's listening to Hero Talk but hasn't seen the movie, and we're not recommending the movie, by the way, so you don't necessarily need to go see it. The case actually is a little trans-dimensional portal, and inside the case is a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you gotta... I forget that people probably don't see all the movies that we do on Hero Talk, because they're not all good. Yeah, so, I mean, the kid's in the case, and you get the whole... make sure you destroy the case if things go wrong. Don't look inside of it. Then maybe you sent the wrong person there, Mr. Vampire. And as long as we're talking about this, because then she's got to escape from these guys, and you get this whole... scene with the blood chinois.
Yeah.
Did I miss, what was these guys' story?
There wasn't one.
Yeah. Now
they just apparently controlled the top 10 floors of that building that is like literally a space needle, like needle and thread. It's shaped like a sewing needle with the eye at the top.
Now, I'm pretty sure I think it's at least partially based on an actual building in Shanghai.
Maybe.
Which is where they filmed most of this movie in Shanghai. I'm going to say Shanghai because that's how I know how to say it, but I noticed whenever somebody referred to it, they said Shanghai. I don't even know if I just said it right, so I'm not even going to pretend. We'll just accept that I understand. I'm probably saying it wrong. But anyway, so these guys...
if it's a real building, I think it's a weird real building because it looks like someone misunderstood what the Space Needle was.
Well, Shanghai is kind of has a lot of different shapes to it as well.
Fair enough.
I mean, it's Shanghai kind of looks like Tomorrowland from Disneyland a little bit.
But yeah, the fight with the blood chinois.
Yeah, they're not even a real Asian race. They made up a new Asian race just to have the blood chinois be that race.
Yeah,
like Thai Hindi, that language they're speaking, that's all made up.
Yeah.
Now, I guess I don't understand. Like, why would you
sequence credit for having the most interesting fighting concept in the movie, which was they were all wearing mirrored glasses. Mm-hmm. So Violet was looking through all of the reflections and reflections of reflections to see what was going on all around her.
Yeah.
Of course, the whole thing went really fast and didn't really read well on screen, and I didn't believe her dodges going into it, but I'll give credit for the idea at least.
Yeah, it was an interesting idea. You almost kind of wish, though, that, like, Violet would... you have guns, Violet. Just use a gun. This could be done faster.
It almost felt like that was this movie's version of the pistol whipping fight from Equilibrium, and they just weren't up to getting anywhere close to anything that cool.
Yeah, well, she did have that other part later where she had knives come out of the bottom of her gun, and that made me think of the pistol whipping scene from Equilibrium. That was during the end fight in the library.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the fight. I don't remember a whole lot about what was going on in there. Actually, when I was watching that, I was thinking, she's shooting a lot of books.
Well, they needed to make that whole, like, raining paper at the end there. But yeah, she destroyed a lot of definitely tangible knowledge.
Yeah. What's more, those were automatic doors when she was going through at the end. Couldn't they have just locked her in?
Yeah, they could have. Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
And clearly we're jumping around because we're not interested in staying one place. Because
there's no continuity to the story, so there's going to be no continuity to Hero Talk, which usually has no continuity in the first place. So when you're already talking about a schizophrenic movie, you can go anywhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, this scene with the blood chinois, I don't know why they're called that, where she doesn't shoot them, but she just dodges until they shoot themselves. It just really felt like that only works if these guys stay in this circular pattern. And, like, it gets to the point where, like, at the end, the 4 guys shoot each other, and then she's done. You're like, so what happened if, like, maybe one of those guys didn't shoot?
Right. Or one of them went off at an angle because she's been dodging.
Yeah, like, hey, you know what? She's been dodging a lot lately. Maybe we should. Or maybe one of them is like, hey, why don't we just go after this kid who's ducking around through the gunfight to try to climb on this ledge?
Yeah.
That was kind of ridiculous. There's like a million gunshots going off, and then she turns, and the kid is not where she left him, but has managed to get to the other side of the whole platform there, and now climbed up on a ledge. So nobody saw that? He didn't get hit with any of that fire. That's a little impractical.
Yeah.
But
her relationship with the kid was just so forced anyway, because there was, she kidnaps him in the case, then, it's actually a kid in here, so I guess he's innocent and we should protect him, but the vampire bosses that sent Violet to get him wanted to kill him or something, and she took him away from them, and she seemed to resent him, and then figured out that he was going to die, and then sort of developed a soft spot for him, and immediately after that tried to abandon him in a mall.
Yeah, that was not...
And then, had a crisis of conscience and saw that the sweepers killed an innocent kid who looked like him, and then found him, who is now running away from her, and then finds out he's going to die or something. And then, oh my God, and then there's the bit where she fakes returning him to Draxus. And after that sequence is the scene where they go to a park to play. And I swear to God, I thought that was supposed to be a dream sequence when it started.
Yeah, I know. I thought so too. But I thought it was... First of all, this whole she fake returns him and it's just this holographic projection. What was that meant to serve? Did she... I guess...
You know what it should have been meant to serve? She should have had a bunch of rocket launchers in her bag of holding wrists.
Yeah.
Have all of the guards out there waiting to meet her. And then she just, rains fire down from on high.
No, but instead her avatar there goes and confronts them and then gets shut up like a million times, and she just kind of well, that happened. Yeah, that happened. Why did that happen?
What did you think was going to happen?
Was that really something you didn't know was going to happen? I was wondering if all those 700 guards were just going to shoot at me. Turns out they were.
Yeah. And the whole visit to the park was just the least sensical thing in the entire movie, which really says something.
It really did kind of feel just okay, so since you're going to die, I guess we might as well go play. We can play until you die.
Yeah, you wanted to see that park from The Thing that we saw when we were sleeping in William Fichtner's truck. And, okay, here's a park. We'll go play until they catch us. Yeah. And then the kid dies.
Well, he doesn't really die because she cried a tear, and the tear lands on his nose.
28 days later, infectious tear crap.
Yeah. So, but as a result, the kid is a hemo whatever.
Yeah, but as far as they know at the time, the kid dies.
Yeah.
Then they shoot Violet. Then, through the magic of love, William Fichtner manages to pick her up before the incineration team gets to her.
I kind of got the impression that he showed up and said he was the incineration team.
Yeah. But, I mean...
How did he know what was going on?
That's just so...
Yeah.
It's audience insultingly convenient.
It really is. I think I was maybe still focused on the idea that, even in this world, there's an incineration team. Kurt Wimmer has his go-to plot devices, and they're there. He's there's an incineration team, obviously. Not everybody has incineration teams. That's not just a thing.
Well, maybe if they were on screen, we would have gotten Sean Bean in this movie.
Oh man, Sean Bean could have made this movie better. Could you imagine Daxus was played by Sean Bean?
I was actually imagining Daxus as played by William Fichtner.
Oh, that'd be good too.
And then Garth should have been played by Sean Bean.
Yeah. And then Mila Jovovich could have still been in it, but then maybe instead of the little kid, we have Christian Bale.
Christian Bale as a clone of William Fichtner.
Yes. He's an imperfect clone.
That's what happens when you get him with the antigens or whatever.
You make a copy of a copy of a copy, and suddenly it's a little bit different than the original.
Are we watching Multiplicity now?
Oh, I like that movie. It's funny. Not good Hero Talk movie. Anyway, so... All right, so I would watch that movie. I should say I'd watch the movie with our recasting. Kurt Wimmer, actually, I think he played a role in it. I want to say he was
one of the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil guys.
I want to say he was speak no evil.
Possibly, I don't know.
Yeah, I think in the credits, I think they actually had them cast as which one was which.
Yeah, so they're labeled as see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil in the credits.
Yeah, so I'm looking it up now, and I'm right. He was speak no evil, which is now when they cast him as that, you're not even being subtle now. Again, he's not as clever as he thinks he is, and I think if he sticks to what's in his wheelhouse, the guy makes entertaining movies. But when he tries to get too smart, or maybe get too cute, I guess is the phrase, then you get Ultraviolet.
This.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's almost like a poor man's Michael Bay who thinks he's smart.
Yes. At least, and you know what? Say what you want about Michael Bay, he doesn't think he's smart.
Yeah, he openly admits that he makes movies for teenage boys.
Yeah, he knows what he's doing, and you know what? The guy makes hand over fist. So as much as I can point at him and be like, "That's what's wrong," that guy still makes money. So Kurt Wimmer just kind of needs to understand what he's doing and go with that. And Kurt, if you're listening, I'm assuming he's listening. He's not listening. I stop being smarter than trying to outsmart me and just kind of present me with something that's fun to watch. Like, that's what we always said about Equilibrium. Equilibrium was fun. And the fun outshone all of the silliness of it. But when you have a movie like Ultraviolet, which is not as fun, then I have no other choice but to focus on all this minutia.
Yeah.
And when there's so much minutia, it doesn't become minutia anymore.
Yeah, it's not as fun as Equilibrium. It's trying to it seems like it's trying to be as smart as Equilibrium, because Equilibrium, while not exactly a brilliant movie, isn't a stupid movie either. But this is a stupid movie, and there's way more of, like you called it, so much minutia. There's way more of that stuff wrong in this than there was in Equilibrium.
Right. Like, I can't
how much of the things wrong in Equilibrium did we explain with one sentence? Preston is an idiot.
Yeah, no, that's true. As long as you go in with that premise, you fix it, and you can't do that here. Unfortunately, no. It's not that easy. But man, there's so many. So I'm watching this movie and thinking to myself, man, this has so much in common with Equilibrium, and I pop onto the Wikipedia page later just to kind of round out my knowledge of the movie so I can walk into this podcast. And they have a whole section on the Wikipedia page of things that this movie has in common with Equilibrium. And there's quite a few, like, there's a couple of ones where, like, I'm shaking my head going, like, yeah, no, you're right, they did that too. Like, obviously, the gun kata. But I didn't need their help telling that. The dystopian future, we are trying to eradicate this thing, but turns out I'm this thing.
Well, Big Brother government kind of
the
thing.
muzzle flashes on their guns. You know how Preston's gun has the cleric logo when he shoots it? And her gun, and I did notice this time around, has the Biohazard logo when she shoots it. The Biohazard logo, because they're that big old building there, because, man, this guy loves weird-shaped buildings.
Yeah, the freaking ministry shaped like a cross. Yeah, that's like a perfect example of not being as smart as you think you are.
Yeah, exactly. Man, you know what? If Kurt Wimmer is actually a fan of Hero Talk, I'm going to feel like a total butt for being this mean to him. But we say it out of love.
Just telling it like it is, man.
Listen, man, you can't tell me what I feel. All right, so Nick, in the last Hero Talk, I introduced a new segment, which I'm bringing on for movies that are universally panned by my panel, which is, before we talk about what our favorite part of the movie is, we're going to talk about what our least favorite part of the movie was. Because I find myself, I'm struggling so hard to find the good point in a movie that I don't like, when I'd much rather discuss the thing that bothered me the most. So, with that in mind, and given that we're both pretty clear that this was not a good film, what would you say was your least favorite part of Ultraviolet?
That is a tricky question, because it's so much of it is just one long, unimpressive action sequence, and they're all kind of disappointing in different ways. There's just the horrible CG of the chase when she's in the motorcycle. There's some shoddy, I don't know, shoddy might be a bit harsh, but the kind of loose execution of gun kata. But I actually think my least favorite part would be the fight in the church.
Oh, really?
Which we haven't even talked about, because they were trying to set it up like, oh, now she's fighting things that are on her level, and they just all run. Like, she spins, you see absolutely nothing clearly, and they all drop.
Yeah, I was thinking of this. Like, now that they make a point out of saying, like, oh, we're just as strong as you, and it seems like she almost has an easier time with these guys than she did with the normal humans. Yeah.
I mean, there was the two outside, and you can kind of let that pass because, you know, she was able to get the upper hand really quick and dispatch them very quickly, and they attacked one at a time, and so they weren't exactly ready for her. They might not be as well practiced, but you don't take out 20 guys with swords all at once like that.
Yeah, with just doing the big circular sword swing and like kills all of them in one shot. You know, especially you're looking and you're expecting you're about to see like a pretty dramatic sword fight, but you don't. You know, like however many people do it, like they come swords raised directly over their heads, every single one of them in the perfect position. They don't defend themselves, even though they allegedly are supposed to have like the super reflexes she has. And in just one fell swoop, she just dispatches them. And then even when she ends up fighting the what was his name, the Nerva guy. Even he, I mean, went down like Tay Diggs at the end of Equilibrium. Just bloopity bloop, and you're done.
Except it wasn't even as fun to watch as Tay Diggs going down.
No, and his head gets impaled on her sword, and I've seen clips of that scene more than once, and I guess I don't get, how does the sword, where was the sword that he could impale his head on it? It seemed like she set it down because she was going to go catch the kid. With her hands that must have been greased. I mean, what was up with that? You grab a rope and you have super strength.
Yeah,
the
that's
rope
the other
just
thing
stops.
I was going to point out is there. He's a kid. You know, you're going to get rope burn on your hands trying to catch the rope as he's falling, as he gets dropped in the well.
Yeah,
but it's not going to keep sliding for like 8 seconds.
It was only maybe 2 seconds.
Or,
2 seconds of actual in movie time, 8 seconds of real world time. They
Fair
slowed
enough.
it down. Yeah, it was.
But
yeah,
that would.
Yeah, she grabs onto it, and the thing is still sliding, and she's rope burning. I'm like, that kid's weighs, what do you think that kid probably weighs, 70, 80 pounds?
Something like that.
No, she's got super strength. I would expect her to just grab the rope and it stops. But they try to make it a little bit more dramatic, and in doing so, like in this movie where I've already decided, like, you've pushed my disbelief about as far as it can go.
It's like they're picking and choosing when to apply the rules that they never defined.
Exactly, and that's a problem. That's a problem when you've clearly decided like on what things you wanted to be in the scene. Like, oh, I want her to take out a bunch of guys. I want somebody's head to get impaled, and I want her to have to like do all this in a certain time so the kid doesn't hit the bottom of the well. And then I want her to have to grab it, but then like it's still going and she's getting rope burned, but she's still holding it. And it's just all this cool stuff that he figured out that he wanted to get in this scene. And the fact that it doesn't actually belong in this movie was irrelevant. But good call, because that wasn't all that good.
No.
So my least favorite part of the movie, conveniently, is one of the other scenes that we haven't talked on too much, but we did talk about it. This end fight scene between Daxus and Mila Jovovich, he makes the whole room go dark, and that's supposed to be some dramatic advantage. But,
he's supposed to have better night vision than her.
Yeah, she can still kind of see at the daytime, but she doesn't have the night vision, so he wants to put up the night vision in this room. Oh, that room really exists, by the way. That's actually a building in Shanghai. They didn't construct it or anything.
Huh.
So that's just an interesting little tidbit. But he does this, and so you think like there's going to be a hero in peril moment here, where she's going to have to really rally herself in order to fight back against a guy who now has a clear advantage over her.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't happen. She just kind of lights her sword on fire. She's like, well, now I'm good. And then he gets lit on fire at one point, and they fight. And I thought this was going to be more than it was, where now he's on fire. But, like, if you think about it, his body's probably healing himself just as fast as he's burning. So you have this, he's going to be on fire for a while. But then she cuts him in half pretty quickly.
Yeah, I didn't even remember much of a fight after he got set on fire. I thought it was pretty much he got set on fire and then got split in two.
I think he made one effort to try to go after her while he was on fire, then she split him in two. So it's just a lot of wasted. You know, it's not like at the end of the movie when like Chris Bale and the other guy in Equilibrium, whose name I've completely forgotten, but like when the end fight of Chris Bale with the two gun guys fighting, that was a dramatic fight. Mm-hmm. That was a fight where you're like, wow, these guys are actually pretty on par with each other here.
Yeah.
This was not that. At no point in time was I invested in this fight, and this is supposed to be the climax. This is supposed to be the part of the movie that it feels so good to me that I forgive all the other stuff.
You know, that's a really interesting thing, because you said you were not invested in this fight, despite the fact that Violet showed a lot more vulnerability in this movie than Preston showed in Equilibrium.
Yeah.
He was just an unstoppable killing machine in Equilibrium, but you get up to Absolutely Not Father, and he starts kind of holding his own. You're like, oh, wow, this is really interesting, and it draws you in, even though it's still a really one-sided fight.
Right.
But here, oddly enough, by showing more vulnerability for Violet, there's actually less investment in her fights.
Yeah, it also helps that Daxus, like, they've already established his abilities and skills, so I'm not, it's not as surprising, it's not as off-putting, and it's just the way the movie turned out. I didn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They overtly show him do the see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, kill.
Yeah.
So it's explicitly shown on the screen. In Equilibrium, it's actually kind of established because he's training other people in the gun kata. Absolutely not father.
Right.
And so he's an instructor, so they very subtly hint that he's someone to be reckoned with still.
Yeah.
And so when that fight starts going, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I just with the problem is when you have a character in Violet who I just had a real hard time connecting with, and a villain in Draxus who I just kind of had another real hard time connecting with. When the two of them fight and there's nothing special going on other than they're just fighting, I'm not invested. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that's
what
happened here. That goes to show you that sometimes it's good characters if you care about what's going on, you'll let go whatever stupid stuff you want to throw at you.
And what's more with that,
got me to
it's
care.
not necessarily just the character as what's written on the page, but the actor bringing the character to life.
Right. And now, for this guy who played Draxus, again, I'm going to try this guy's name one more time. Nick Chinland. I don't know. I've never heard it spoken. And I don't remember him from anything else I've ever seen. I just had a real hard time liking him and being involved with him.
I assume you mean liking him as a villain.
As a villain, yeah. No, I obviously he's not going to be, a sympathetic character, but I really didn't buy it. But with, not father, I was kind of there with him. Like, you got a feel for this guy as a character, and he was put out there. And, like, I don't know whether the blame lies with Nick Chunlin, but at the same time, Mila Jovovich really couldn't get me invested in Violet, and I like her in a lot of stuff. I mean, she was already halfway there by the fact that I did like her.
Yeah.
And the movie, the movie was written for her, quite frankly. Literally was written for her, with her in mind.
That hurts. That news hurts. I wouldn't call it good, but relative to the rest of the movie, I found his portrayal of Draxus to be one of the more enjoyable things to watch.
It was interesting because Draxus is such a germaphobe, which is odd given that he's a germaphobe, but he has the super healing. But then he's also apparently, because he would have contracted the disease like way at the very beginning of this thing.
Yeah, like, it was implied that he was patient zero.
Yeah.
Because he was the one that first got his finger pricked.
Yeah. So I don't understand where his 12-year dead switch is coming from. And maybe it's the germaphobe. Maybe he's so protective of germs that
maybe it's that thing in his nose and all the coffee he drinks.
He does like to drink coffee in his self-heating mug.
Huh.
Yeah. They actually have those, so I guess that's not super futuristic, but it was just kind of odd that everything needs to be sterilized before he'll use it.
Yeah.
Well, whatever keeps you young.
Yep.
All right. I guess it's my turn. I think the thing that I hated the most about this movie, and hate's a strong word, I guess the thing I liked the least about this movie is the kid.
Mm.
And I had somehow completely forgotten that there was a kid in this movie. So here it is, 2015. I'm watching Ultraviolet again. She opens the case and there's a kid. And I'm like, oh no, I don't want to see this. And I think that moment right there, that was a sad moment for me. So yeah, so I'm gonna have two because those both were sad moments for me. I would say.
Yeah.
The end fight and the kid.
Yeah, the moment where they start getting into the kid, what the kid is. There's also just too many fake outs and reversals for the audience to really get invested in any expectation for what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Like the stakes are just all over the place. It's like, okay, they're trying to kill all the hemophages, despite the fact they're going to die anyway. Okay, so we don't want that. Okay, but the hemophages are trying to infect the rest of humanity. Well, okay, that's bad. Okay, so they're making this kid to kill the hemophages. No, actually what the kid is actually, we can make him into a cure for the hemophages. Okay, no, he's actually by Draxus to infect all of the normal people. And but the kid actually, for some reason, knows the chemical composition for a cure. It just goes back and forth too many times. And
Yeah. No, I got you. You never really know what's going on.
And therefore, you never really care.
Yeah, so you don't care. And that's where the movie fails. So, now, let's try our hardest. what was your favorite part? I was gonna say the best, but that's the wrong wording here.
See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil.
See no evil, speak no evil?
Yeah, it was actually, watching that scene alone had a weird tension to it, which was enjoyable. It, Draxus goes in there, the hemophages kill all of his guards, and he just kind of calmly walks into the adjacent kitchen, which was in that hallway for some reason.
Yeah, that was really off-putting to me, is when he walks in and there's a kitchen. I'm like, how did he know there was a kitchen there?
And then he has his cloth pinstripe gloves, and he starts taking out his coffee and making coffee, and just the focus of everything in that scene was kind of fascinating. The only thing that would have made it better, although it would have been a really tall order, is if when he quick draws and shoots see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil, that you actually see him not spill his coffee, rather than that being off frame.
Yeah.
But, that would be pretty rough. And given the way the other stuff was done in the movie, they probably would have made it look terrible.
Yeah. You would have to have an empty cup and then CG the coffee in there. And then have him try to take a believable sip of that CG coffee after he's done.
I would actually imagine that you'd have to have a whole CG arm so that it wasn't moving.
Yeah.
Or have a CG gun arm.
Yeah, that'd be weird. Anyway, I was really off-put by how impractically shaped that coffee cup was. I think I've mentioned that before.
Yeah, but when I was watching it, I was just the shape of the cup, the impracticality of the cup was meant to highlight how unsteady it was.
Yeah.
And how steady his hand had to have been to be able to get away with that shot.
Yeah. I bet, and I get why. It's just, why would you go into a kitchen they had have coffee cups shaped like that?
Yeah.
Stupid future. So my favorite part of the movie was, I'm just gonna go with the low-hanging fruit, William Fichtner. Whenever Garth was on screen, I liked what was going on in the movie, and whenever Garth left, it was sad.
It was really bad when they were in the truck with Garth, but Garth wasn't on screen.
Yeah, that's really sad.
That may have been the overall, actually, worst scene in the movie, because it was so dull.
Yeah. I kind of liked Garth's little setup there, where it's like he's living in the back of the truck, but like the three
truck
walls,
is its own bag of holding.
Yeah, the three walls of the truck are opened up, and so it's this huge lab that he's been working in. So that was kind of cool. Like, you had that whole thing set up, and he was, and the thing with Garth is, because Garth got super smart from the hemophage, so all he's doing is working on a cure. And I'd like to think, because the movie ends a little odd, like they make it seem like Six knows the cure, because he saw it, and, you know how kids are, just memorizing complex serums and compositions and chemicals and stuff. Yeah, that's like children do, but they're not really clear about whether or not Violet gets cured or not, or whether it's just way too late and she's just going to die right there. I'd like to think that Garth cures her, because I like Garth. I want him to be the hero.
I want Garth to be happy. I don't care about anybody else.
Yeah, that's basically how it comes down. I want Garth to be happy. As long as Garth's happy, I'm happy. And so if that means that Milla Jovovich gets to live at the end of this movie for me, then by gone it, she gets to live.
Fair enough.
Okay, so of the movie, now is the time on Hero Talk where we have to give this movie a score. So Nick, what would you score Ultraviolet?
The number of people who've seen the movie.
So 2.
Which I still think is 2.
Yeah. So if I had to score this movie, I would have to give it 2 immunizing hemophage virus-infused tears out of 5.
Very generous.
Yeah, there are still things that I kind of like watching on it, and there's some interesting concepts at place, and William Fichtner's in it.
Is William Fichtner worth at least 1.5?
Yeah, William Fichtner gives you 1.5, at least, in Hero Talk. So, between those two things, I was actually, and it was short. So I didn't have enough time for it to really bother me. That's horrible, but, sometimes being short and just cutting your losses can get you a little bit of an extra bump in the score on Hero Talk. So appreciate that it at least wasn't a long bad movie. It was a short bad movie. All right, and so that was Equilibrium. No, that was Ultraviolet.
Oh God, I wish it was.
No. Sorry, I get those confused. I forgot. We're doing the bad one. All right, so that was Ultraviolet. So, Nick, dude, I'm sorry. I remembered it being
I'll get you
better.
back for this someday.
You know the rules of Hero Talk. If you do a good movie, you have to do a bad movie.
This should count as at least 2, probably 3 bad movies.
Yeah, it's not recommended, by the way. If you're still at this point or wondering, and you're still a little bit on the fence, it's not recommended.
If you want to watch this movie, do yourself a favor and watch Street Fighter: The Legend of Chun-Li instead.
I don't know if that's really a favor.
It's better.
Yeah, it is.
At least you get the bizarre spectacle of seeing Irish Geese Howard pretending to be M. Bison.
Yeah, I like Irish Bison. I decided that's how I want him to be in the game. I want Bison to speak next time and speak with a full-blown Irish accent. They should do that. Capcom, get on that.
You need some Elseworlds of Street Fighter lore.
Yeah. All right, well, anyway, on behalf of my panel, I just want to thank everyone for joining us. If you have a movie that you want us to discuss, or if you want to join in on the panel sometime, you can email herotalk@enthusiacs.com. For more podcasts, let's plays, articles, videos, reviews, you can visit us at enthusiacs.com. Also follow us on Twitter, we are at Enthusiacs, and our YouTube channel is entitled Enthusiacs. And as always, we'll see you right back here on the next Hero Talk.